He's Bruce the Blog.
And he's Bazzo, and you're watching Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo.
Good evening, everybody. So anyway, this should be...
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo. We're now well into December, right? With only a few weeks left for the year, and then we're into 2012. Bazzo and I are really happy that you've joined us, whether it's new, whether you're new today, or you've been with us in other shows, but we've been doing it for like about, 4 months now?
Since June 16th.
By my math, that's more than 4 months.
Yes.
So it's like it'll be close to 6 months. So thank you all for that, and of course, happy holidays to everybody.
Now, aren't you thinking about expanding into Rockland? You sent me an email on that.
Well, it remains to be seen. I have to engage with the Rockland Public Access
But in
Coordinator.
one of the past shows, you had mentioned how we keep expanding, and I know that you have been in contact with people from Rockland.
Well, I don't know about you, but I've been going to the gym, so I'm trying not to expand, actually. In any case.
Told you in that other show, you're still...
During the holidays, it's hard not to expand.
Told you before, you're not getting out of this life alive.
Okay, yeah, well, remains to be seen. Very quickly, we like to do some housekeeping, holiday keeping in terms of some entertainment around the area that we just want to remind you about. Something that's sort of entertainment, but is also shopping. It's called Gifts for the Guys and Gifts for the Gals, and actually, as you're watching this show, it's going on right now at the winery at Old St. George in Mohegan Lake in Yorktown. But on December 15th, which is next week, they're going to repeat it as Shop for the Gals with merchandise that, guys, you may want to go out and get your wife, girlfriend, or significant other something while you're sipping wine and hors d'oeuvres and listening to music. If you haven't been to the winery, it's unique. I mean, there's nothing else like it in the area, and you really owe it to yourself to at least see the winery.
And they really did an homage to the historic significance of that church. That's where I was baptized.
Which, by the way, is it's going to be 100 years old, actually. It's
Happy
right
birthday.
at its 100th anniversary, the building.
It is a great place.
Well, you've been there,
Yeah, there's
Bob.
nothing like it. There really is.
There is nothing like it, yeah. And speaking of which, before I go on, we have to introduce our guest.
I'm the moderator.
Right. Which is
Between us, he would be.
What? That's right. He could be the moderator.
You're the comhead.
Town of Supervisor. Wow.
Town of Supervisor.
What did I say?
He's Town of Supervisor.
Well, wait a
Putnam
minute.
Valley.
Town of Putnam Valley.
At least I caught myself. Town of Putnam Valley Supervisor Robert Tendy. Bob Tendy. Bob, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Yes, Robert.
Right.
I got to mention one thing, Bruce.
Yeah.
Robert Tendy, Bob, is the only politician that ever stood up for me in writing. Well, a lot of them say, I like your column, but he actually wrote in support us on the issues of man-made global warming. And I've got a lot of friends I've defended in print. And he's the only one that's ever defended me, and I wanted to thank him for that.
Was that like before he met you?
No.
No, it was quite a bit.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, then it is impressive.
I always found that that he of all the people to defend me, it was you, because we're not really as close as I am to a lot of the other people.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people remember you used to write that column for the Penny Saver, which was very widely read, very widely commented on.
North County News.
North County News,
right,
thank you very much. And it was a great column, and I think I actually wrote a letter once
Right,
advising you to give him a pay raise because somebody else might steal it.
Right.
You always wrote good columns, even when I didn't agree with you. I thought they were right and to the point. I liked your introduction. I liked your tagline at the end.
So I always found I always wanted to thank you for standing up for me on that, because I took a lot of heat for that.
And
when I get stuff like this before the show really starts, I'm in trouble.
Anyhow, Bazzo's column now is back in the Penny Saver.
Yeah,
in
our
certain editions
sponsor.
of Penny Saver, yes, which is, of course, the sponsor of the show, the Penny Saver, from Chase Media Group. And we thank, as always, Carla Chase and Frank Rich for being the executive producers of this show, which is, by the way, we like to call it a weekly community affairs show. You know, Sunday morning, you always see Well, Meet the Press, of course, and Face the Nation, which are public affairs Sunday morning shows.
Or
This
Herman
is-
Cain, who has private affairs.
Lord, I'm not touching that with a 20-foot pole. But yeah, so this is a community affairs show, and you know, listen, YouTube has made video just part of the whole conversation now. It's people assume they're going to have video about everything, right?
Speaking of YouTube,
Yeah.
we are now, thanks to a customer and friend of mine, Denise Williams, the best of Brewster Blog Goes Bazzo could be found on YouTube. You'll be seeing past shows that you've missed, especially for people that weren't in the area at the time we were doing the show, and more recent shows. And we want to thank Denise
Yes,
for
very much so,
continue to
no.
put the post up of the best of Brewster Blog Goes Bazzo.
Yeah, and it's the best of Brewster. So was it like 2 or 3 minutes? Is that?
No, it's all 30 minutes.
Oh,
And by
really?
the way,
Okay.
it's all 30 minutes at one time.
Right.
It's not broken up into segments.
No, right. She did a great job because usually on YouTube, I think 15 minutes is the
Right.
max. But yeah, so all 30 minutes are there for your viewing pleasure. Anyhow, quickly, at Westchester Broadway Theater, they have a great holiday show called Home for the Holidays. You can check into that. There's always great shows at the Paramount. And by the way, I know you've been to the Paramount. I met the other day the new executive director, Lisa Reese, her name is. She's great. She's a dynamo. She's going to do really great things for the Paramount. You're going to see a lot of changes in the way the Paramount is promoted and in the programming starting in January. In fact, she announced at the Gateway Chamber of Commerce the other day, Judy Collins will be there in April. It hadn't been announced yet. Suzanne Vega and Duncan Sheik, who wrote the score for Spring Awakening. And I know, Bob, your niece, right?
My daughter.
Oh, and your daughter too, but also your niece is at Yorktown, I know, right?
She's in the Yorktown High School play this
Janine, is
weekend.
it?
Janine, yes.
Janine Tendy.
That's correct.
So Bob, Bob and I actually are kindred spirits in a number of ways, but one of them is, we both have, children. My late son Harrison loved performing arts. Your daughter and your
Yeah,
niece
my kids, all
loves
my
the
kids.
performing arts.
My niece does.
And that's one of the things, we can't emphasize enough is the importance of the performing arts,
Yeah.
especially in kids. We talk about sports a lot, but, I know with Harrison, he was 3 feet tall. He was a dwarf. And I love to say when Harrison was on stage, he felt 10 feet tall. Because that's what it does for you.
Don't you have a concert series in Putnam Valley? Because you always send me the updates.
We do. We're having another one on January 29th. It's going to be
Where?
It's going to be at the Putnam Valley High School Performing Arts Center, and it's going to be a benefit. Can't announce yet the group it's going to benefit. We're having a meeting about it next Friday, and it's going to be to raise money for a very worthy.
But these are a continuing series of
Yes,
concerts.
they are.
What's the cause, Bob?
Well, we started out just having free concerts. We received a grant, a very generous grant annually we get from the Ann Anastasi Foundation, and it was to, at my request, help us put on musical concerts throughout the year in the town of a rather, a high quality level.
Right.
We've had some great jazz bands. We've had the
Yes,
Bird
and I was
Johnson
one I
Band
went
play.
to. I remember there was.
We've
yeah,
had a great, tremendous klezmer, Alicia Spiegels has played, and we have had a group called Valley Musica, which is a group put together by Audrey Axon, who is a classical pianist. She teaches at Juilliard and the Manor School, and her father, Steve Axon, happens to be a resident of Putnam Valley. And I was just mentioning to Steve one day in passing, totally coincidentally, I said, I'd love to get a great classical concert. And he called me the next day and he said, how'd you like to have a bunch of real professional musicians from Juilliard, et cetera? I was like, yes, Steve, that would be really nice. What do you have in mind?
Right.
And he told me, and we've already put on 3 concerts. This is going to be the 4th in the series.
No, that's great to hear.
Very high caliber musician, great stuff.
At the Hudson Valley Gateway Chamber holiday breakfast that I went to, which was on stage at the Paramount, it was cool. They do that every December. Larry DeNoia, who does a great job emceeing the Gateway Chamber meetings, breakfast. Well, you've been there. He's a financial planner in Peekskill, Larry DeNoia, and he does a tremendous job as the MC of the meetings. He said something I never heard before, which is a great sort of epigram, which is, he said, all living things eat and sleep, but the arts is what makes us human. And I said, wow, that's a great line.
That is a
isn't
really
it?
great
Yeah,
line.
that's
That's
great.
fantastic.
I mean, it's a great
I'm going
one.
to steal that.
Yeah, no, I just stole it, so you can steal it.
I messed you up. You have to do your salute yet. I messed you up.
Yeah, no, you didn't mess me up. I mean, no more than usual. But I just want to mention too, Yorktown Stage has the Nutcracker coming up, and they also do, speaking of the same topic, the Yorktown Stage for the Christmas break, the holiday break, if you want to be politically correct, the Hanukkah break.
Christmas.
December,
It's Christmas.
And it's Hanukkah too. December 27th to 30th at Yorktown Stage. You can have your kid there learning theater and appearing. I think it's Little Shop of Horrors they're going to do. Just in those few days, they're going to, put on a show, which is a great way
Yeah,
for
it's
the
great.
for the kids to take a break.
Lot of
And
stuff going on.
Yeah, that's right. And then one last thing, my shameless self-promotion segment of the show, December 17th and 18th at the Hart Library in Yorktown. Prison of 2nd Avenue, YCP Theater Works, a community theater group that's been around for decades. We've done Prison of 2nd Avenue and Neil Simon comedy at Ceola Manor Dinner Theater, but we're going to put on 2 free shows December 17th and 18th at the Hart Library in Yorktown.
Nice.
So it's a lot of fun. The salute of the week, there's a couple of salutes of the week. One goes actually to the Journal News, daily newspaper. Gannett puts out the Journal News. Gannett's the largest newspaper chain in the country. The Journal News announced recently that no longer will they tolerate, which is my word, anonymous posts on their websites. It's about time. It's about time. I wrote my blog, which is in the Penny Saver this week, called Anonymous This. And one of the things I'll just say is, and this is Bazzo and other people who maybe read my blog or seen the show know I'm
the one.
I'm very passionate about my opposition to anonymous posts. People invoke freedom of speech, which is absurd to say it's a matter of freedom of speech. It's freedom of speech that you don't have to sign your name to a document. That's not freedom of speech to be anonymous.
That's potentially freedom from libel laws.
Well, okay, well, but you know what I say, Bob? I say it's abuse of freedom of
Correct.
speech,
It is.
actually. But anyhow, this is the only line. My take on this is, there really should be a support group for people who seem incapable of signing their name, really to post. And you know what the name of the support group is? Anonymous. Okay, anyhow.
Well, you have to understand, those people are still writing with crayon.
Right. I mean, the fact of the matter is, getting serious again for a second on that topic, is they don't want to face the consequences of what they say. And then don't say it. Sign your name and don't say it if you think that there's going to be retribution. That's what holds you responsible. Anyhow. The other salute of the week, Richie D'Andrea, who's very well known in these parts. Richie owns Park Ford in Mahopac. It's a great dealership. He does a great job. He was honored the other night, and I was happy to be there, sitting with him at his table with a lot of other friends. The Entrepreneurial Award that the Putnam County Chambers of Commerce gave out at their recent Icebreaker networking event in Brewster at the Star Ridge Banquet Hall. And Richie D'Andrea, nobody deserves to be honored more than him. He does a tremendous job in the community. He's very generous, donating to charities and supporting charities. He's chaired all kinds of committees in Mahopac and Putnam County to help the community. So we're really happy, and salute goes out to Richie D'Andrea. And then finally, on a political front, since we last recorded the show, 2 Michaels have been certified as winners in their respective elections. That's Michael Kaplowitz, who is the county legislator in Westchester for District 4. It was a little bit up in the air. Terrence Murphy did a very commendable job in his race. He did very well, Terrence, and he remains a councilman in Yorktown, Terrence Murphy. So Mike Kaplowitz is reelected. I forget he's in his fifth term?
It's been there since '96.
It's 1996. 12 years, Dennis, our invisible member of the panel, tells us. And the other Michael in Yorktown is Michael Grace. He was in a very tight race with past Supervisor Don Peters. And Michael Grace, in the last few days, has been certified as the winner of that election. And in the interest of full disclosure, I really want to say that I'm participating in Michael Grace's transition team. And so I just want that to be on the table.
So we're not going to see any anonymous posts about the races under the campaign name, right?
No, right, I guess not.
Anyway,
Anyhow, let's get to Bob.
We got a salvo,
yeah.
and I'm going to get your comment on this salvo because you're part of government, but you are a Republican. You're one of the more true Republicans I know, maybe even more conservative Republican than Republican conservative. Government overreaching. Now, anybody that's read my columns and read my blog knows I've had a problem with Peekskill with their taxi laws. They were supposed to just regulate the amount of taxis, and it's expanded into cost and all sorts of rules. So I go in, because it's December now, we have to re-inspect our taxis. I go in to get the paperwork. And normally it was just you go in, they hand you the papers, you go. I'm told I've got to wait for a specific cop now to give me these blank forms that are no good until they're signed and notarized. What is it about government? Because I have to salvo this bureaucratic mentality that even a blank piece of paper has to be scrutinized, even though for 15 years there's been nothing wrong. They can make a dozen copies of this. Who cares? But they're saying,
You asked me a question.
I'm asking you, what is it about government that they can't sometimes just leave well enough alone?
The problem with government all throughout the country and all throughout the world is that government very often is not able to rely on what most people rely on in their day-to-day lives, which is common sense. There are so many rules, so many regulations, so many mandated pieces of red tape that you can't function as a normal human being if you're within the confines of government. It doesn't work that way.
But why do they fix things that aren't broken?
That's a whole nother question. This is only a half-hour show, from what I understand. We could spend months on that.
No, and I think it's a great point that you're making, Bob, because, again, going back, Michael Grace's transition team issued recently a press release to announce the transition team, and sort of tried to set out in very broad strokes, his approach, as he enters office on January 1 of 2012. And one of the lines, which is almost verbatim what you just said, is that hard analysis combined with common sense will yield effective, efficient solutions. But common sense has to be part of it.
And I think I like the first part even better. Hard analysis is difficult to do in government because so many people in government are so concerned with the public's perception of their thought process. They don't want to get into hard analysis because they don't want to offend somebody, or they don't want to let somebody know that money might be drying up, or they don't want to let a group know that they might not get the funding they want. And hard analysis is something that politicians are not used to giving to the public.
Right. Yeah, that's a good
Now,
point too.
speaking of
Yes.
Michael Grace, and speaking of, you and Michael Grace are both attorneys,
Okay, I wasn't aware that Michael's an attorney.
Yes, he's
Yeah.
an attorney. I know you're a criminal lawyer, right?
I'm a lawyer who practices criminal law.
You know what I meant. You know what I meant. I mean,
Important distinction.
no, that is true, because I thought they just found the bones of the last
All
honest
right.
lawyer, and they're examining them at the museum. But anyway, seriously, one of the that which was a contentious issue the first time you ran, it made the papers. I mean, you may not have thought it was, but basically, you never know who's reading the paper. To them, it becomes an issue. And in Yorktown, it was a big thing: is Michael Grace going to be able to be a full-time supervisor and a full-time lawyer?
Again, I'm on his transition team, so you could take this, as you want. But it was, I wouldn't say in Yorktown it was a big thing. One, he won, and two, obviously the opposition is trying to find anything they can to question his credibility.
Susan Siegel made an issue of it. Don
Yes,
Peters made an
right.
issue. It was an issue. Whether it was
Yes, it was. It was absolutely an
The fact
issue,
is,
yes.
you've been there, done that. Number one, you can do both apparently, and still, because supervisor.
Well,
but the
no,
Valley's a-
actually you can't. I
Okay.
am not
I
a
stand corrected.
full-time lawyer in the sense that prior to becoming town supervisor, I was at my law office 5 days a week, 8 to 7, 8 to 8, 8 to 9, sometimes Saturdays and Sundays. Obviously, I can't do that as a town supervisor.
Right.
I've had to cut back my law practice drastically. So I will go to my law practice very, very early in the morning, sometimes at 4 o'clock. I will get there I'll get there after work, after 4 when we break, and I'll sometimes spend until 9 or 10 there.
So you still
I'll be
have
there on
clients.
Saturdays. Oh, yes.
Yeah, right.
But I can't do it. There will be occasions when I will, for example, I've been town supervisor now for just under 4 years.
Right.
And believe it or not, the wheels of law do grind slowly. And I have had cases which I signed on board and were paid for 5 years ago.
Right.
And they've had to come to trial. All those cases I was able to make bench trials, so they're much quicker, much more efficient.
Right.
But that's the only time when I've actually had to be out of the office for an entire day.
Well, what advice
That's happened
would-
twice in the last 4 years.
What advice would you
But
give?
there were short trials, 2 days here, and then I would make up for it by going to work late at night or spending a Saturday, or this Thanksgiving weekend, I was in town hall most of the day Friday.
Right.
What
Right.
advice would you give to Michael Grace as a first time going in now? He's never had elective office again, right now, to deal with the balancing act.
Just keep his wits about him, and if he sees that the balances are tipping away from the town, he's going to have to pull it back more.
Yeah.
He's
But
just
also
going to have to,
to-
So
because
the
it's one
priority
thing. It's
is-
one thing to put a client on hold, but fairly and legally and ethically you can do that. but you can't put the town on hold because you made promises during an election and you have to keep.
But also, are you?
And I don't think Michael Grace will have a problem with that. I didn't know he was a lawyer. From what I understand, he has a very good reputation as a
Yes.
citizen.
And are you the single owner-operator of your practice?
I am. It's a solo
So
practice.
now in Michael Grace's case, his brother Bill Grace, I mean, the name of the firm is Grace and Grace. His brother Bill is a partner, and he has other people, Bob Marino. So there are other people
Yeah.
there who are going to carry it forward.
And you can be you have to remain licensed, so you can always be a full-time lawyer.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're going to be running your practice every single day from your law office. Obviously, you could not do that as a congressman, senator, supervisor, whatever. You just can't do it.
What's interesting, in terms of just the juxtaposition geographically, is that on a clear day, Michael Grace can see Town Hall from his front porch.
Yes.
By the way, he can also see it on a cloudy day, but because he's like,
Yeah,
he's directly across.
It's
from
also
Town
a
Hall,
lot
right?
easier today. You can, on a lunch break, accomplish stuff for your law office
Right.
in just a half hour. That used to be able to take you 3-4
Because
hours
of
plus
the
the road
internet?
trips because of the internet. It's right there. You,
Right.
you pull out a laptop, you pull out a phone, you send text messages. You can take care of a bunch of stuff really fast now that you weren't able to do in the past.
I asked James Martirano in my Bazzo Grill series, because he's a public defender.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and most lawyers you see in politics are real estate lawyers, business lawyers. But you, like Jim, you took up law with dealing with people that are not the
I do
most.
criminal law. I also do a little bit of personal injury and
But
family law,
but
mostly
but,
criminal
but
law.
basically, you do. Why criminal law, Bob?
I love
I
criminal
mean,
law.
before we get into the politics, why
My
criminal
father
law?
was an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District for many years, and he was actually acting U.S. attorney. He actually was one of the people who trained Rudolph Giuliani.
Really?
Yes,
Whoa.
and he was there for a very long time. And as a kid, we would go to Foley Square and run around all up and down the stairways. It was a much different time. It was like a real old-fashioned type of atmosphere. You'd have guys with guns on their strapped to their legs. They'd be smoking cigars and pipes, and they'd be pouring over papers. And we would be running all around, and every now and then he'd take us into the courtroom. And there were, of course, always criminal trials. And to me, that's what I thought a lawyer did, criminal cases. So that's just what I gravitated towards.
So you sort of knew Rudy when you were? Did you see him? Or,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you stay in touch with him, or?
I haven't spoken to him in quite a while. My sister Susan was just at a football game with him. He's a very, very,
Oh.
very bright guy. I interned
I know.
with him in his office in 1988, in the summer of '88,
Right.
and he's a very sharp man.
Well,
I mean,
listen, he's
smart.
widely credited, and deservedly so, with significantly reducing crime in New York City.
He's got a ton of common sense. He's got
Yeah,
a
no, he did
lot
a
of
great
common
job
sense.
as the mayor in terms of his crime.
Yeah, tremendous job.
Kept you guys
Tremendous job.
employed.
I'm
Kept
sorry?
you guys employed by finding criminals. Anyway, now I don't want to lose time.
Yeah.
Bruce has got the latest news on your Putnam Valley.
Yeah, well,
local
again,
elections.
because of the fact that we're talking now, but the show isn't being seen until several days later. By the time the show airs, so as we're talking now, for all intents and purposes, the race should have been, or the election recount for the council
In Putnam Valley.
in
yeah.
Putnam Valley should have been resolved.
Should have been.
But I know as we are talking, there was a recount, and it was tied on the original count, and it was tied again on the recount, right?
You are losing definitely one Republican off the council.
Well, not necessarily. Gene Yetter is a registered Republican.
No, what I meant is, what's his name, McKay? The Democrat?
Steve McKay ran for office and he won.
Right,
He
so
won,
you
so
got
he's
one.
in.
You got one Democrat that did win. So it's,
We'll be gaining a Democrat.
right,
We're
you're
not
gaining.
necessarily losing a
Okay,
Republican.
you're gaining a Democrat, but like Bruce says, you got a tie vote here. I mean, really a tie vote. What's
So what happened? So the question is, you could write
What we can do is this, according to my understanding of the election law for towns, is that a vacancy will be declared in January when all the board members are sworn in. So there'll be 4 of us instead of 5. I will make a recommendation that the new board choose from the second top 2 vote getters, which should be Gene or Bob.
Bob Cinquay.
Last
We didn't-
name.
Bob
Last
Chinquay.
name,
Bob
right.
Chinquay,
Bob
right.
Cinquay,
So
yes.
if the board
And
can
Gene
agree
Yetter.
to appoint one of those 2, great. If we can't, we can do one of 2 things. We can either leave a vacancy for a year until next November, or we can agree on a third party to be appointed. I don't think we're going to have a problem finding someone to fill the slot, because you mentioned Republican and Democrat, but it really doesn't come into play, at least in our town, in town politics, town government. There's not a lot of Democratic, liberal, Republican, conservative issues.
And there should be.
There really isn't.
There should be, right.
Well, I've written about it, and Bruce has written local politics. The party label is really not. I mean, not that.
Locally,
Right.
the party's good for one thing. They throw a lot of good dinners. They help get people elected. But they don't interfere with how we view a particular issue at all. They leave us alone. It's very independent.
Right. No, and again, you know, we've talked about this, and I'm a firm believer. People first. In other words, vote for the person.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of what party they belong to.
Yeah, but for a while, though, we would talk about this off the air. Putnam Valley was very contentious in their elections, and all of a sudden now everything is under the radar. What happened?
I have tried to instill upon the people that are on the town board that, as Bruce said, it's about people. I try to get everybody to come to work to do a job. We have a job just because we're elected officials. I can't stand when people introduce me as a dignitary. I don't like that. I'm not a dignitary. I hold a job that people voted me in to do. So that stuff doesn't come into play anymore. Politics of that nature, I think, at least for the time being, we've kind of gotten rid of it in Putnam Valley.
Was
we
it
concentrate on our
tough to
jobs.
do this?
No,
You
no.
had one mindset before you came in.
It wasn't tough to do it because what we did was we ignored it.
Oh.
As long as you don't give it back, it's like a fastball hitting the bat. You either don't swing at it, or you make sure every pitch that comes in is nice and slow. We just ignored it. So when people would write stuff, write letters, I would say, ignore it. I'm sure that frustrated you as the editor of North County News, because you didn't get a lot of stuff from us. We just weren't doing it. We were staying out of it, and it diffuses the level of intensity.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, it's true what you're saying, Bob, because again, and this is not in a pejorative, derogatory way, but we would think of Putnam Valley as sleepy, you know, the sleepy little town, but it is a testament, you know, on the other side, to the fact that there were those scandalous things going on, and, you know, and actually, frankly, I mean, there's always gossip in every town, but nothing that a newspaper responsibly could latch onto and really say this is news.
You know, if you come to work every day and just do your job, you don't have time for that kind of gossip.
But wait, everybody says one of the things that keeps getting reread on you, because on the internet nothing goes away, so people go back to old posts and old things. So one of the big things that's still being searched and reread was the column I did on the Putnam Peaksville Hollow Road, Peaksville Hollow Roadblocks I called it, where you gave me a beautiful summation, and then I talked to Sam Oliverio and I got all this stuff on, and people keep going back. But one of the things I wrote about with that was that you have a clique you have to fight all the time that wants to make Putnam Valley where the town where time stands still. Are they still a force to be reckoned with?
Yes, because first of all, they're citizens and they have a legitimate viewpoint. I don't necessarily agree with everything they say, but they are residents. Many of them actually come into my office and sit down and chew the fat with me, and we have serious disagreements, but they're a force to be reckoned with in the sense that they have an opinion that they want to express. I try to make it impersonal. I try to make it not a political thing. So if they say something about Peaksville Hollow Road, I will try to explain to them why either they're incorrect in their assumptions about what I would like to see, or we have an honest disagreement. But yeah, I think one person who comes into my office to say anything about any issue is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah,
But what I'm
because we're actually, believe it or not, heading towards the tail end of the show. This thing goes very fast. But I want to get into it, Bazzo, about economic development, because I remember, Bob, when you were running, and I remember I was moderating the debate at the high school, and I know in Peekskill, you know, which is in Putnam Valley, I have to mind my P's and Q's. Putnam Valley. You know, it's sort of an agricultural town, right? I mean, it's perceived.
Well, it's not agricultural. It's more a rural/suburban.
But I'd say, you know, maybe more than some of the.
There's a lot more country there than the towns surrounding us.
It's sort of vintage Putnam County, you know, but it has a lot of Westchester in it too, right?
Very much like Yorktown of the early '60s.
Right. So.
Where you had the heights.
We only have a few seconds, so just quickly, anything with economic development you want to talk about? Just highlight.
What's the stuff you were telling in the front of the post office?
Well, we still have to have the county. Well, let me back up. In 2008, when I took office, the economy tanked, and a lot of the plans that we had for various parcels in town have not come to fruition. I'm hoping that things will pick up. There are 2 or 3 parcels of property where people want to do things with. I think it would be very helpful to us. There's also a section in town which is currently in litigation, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but there's a piece of property in town that the county has to act on so that they can do what's right, so that another business owner can come in and take control, and this way we will be able to get something done there.
All right, Bazzo, yeah.
These were my opinions. You may beg to differ. Thank you.
We want to thank Bob, and when Bruce the blog listens, People talk. Thank you, everybody.